We're here today to talk about the Youth Mentoring Grant and the really amazing work that it's been doing for young people for a number of years. The program in its current form was put into place in 2007. It actually used to be known as the Juvenile Mentoring Program in the early 90s, really started to pick up some steam in the mid-2000s, and we've seen some really important steady increases in the last 5 fiscal years. And that's because Congress and bipartisan administrations have recognized the value of investing in this very unique and innovative prevention and intervention model. We were excited to see that President Biden proposed $120 million for the grant this fiscal year. It's a $20 million increase. And the House actually passed it at $110 million. And we certainly hope that we can get that number once decisions are sort of made. Also, just wanted to sort of flag, the National Mentoring Resource Center is also funded by this grant. Through the National Mentoring Resource Center, any program across the country can request free training or technical assistance at no cost to them. And that's delivered by our mentor affiliates across the country in their states. The grant itself is actually made up of 5 different categories. We're going to dig into a couple of them today. Through a couple of different panels, we have some very special guests joining us as well to reinforce just the value of this program for young people. But first and foremost, we're excited to have Representative Gay Scanlan joining us via video today. She really wanted to join us live, but as we all know, kind of duty calls, but I do know for a fact that she would much rather be here. She's just been such a champion for us and the youth mentoring movement. And we're so thrilled that she was able last second to send us some video remarks. And so we'll go ahead and hear what she has to say.
Today, I'm excited to hear about the work that you're doing for young people and discuss how important the federal funding streams are. And always thank you to our partners at Mentor for helping to make today's event possible. As we come up to the end of 2021, Congress is hammering out our final budget for FY 2022. And as the negotiations continue, it's important to highlight the sole youth mentoring specific line item in the federal budget, and that would be the Department of Justice's Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention's Youth Mentoring Grant. So we're gonna call it the OJJDP, Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, has long supported mentoring because it knows how important a tool that it is for our young people. And it's distributed over $1 billion to programs throughout the country using the Youth Mentoring Grant. President Biden has made his priorities clear to Congress when he recommended that funding for the grant be increased in fiscal year 2022. And we know all of the trauma and challenges that kids have experienced, particularly over the last couple of years, that this is really, really important. So I, along with a bipartisan group of colleagues, have pushed to get this $10 million increase over the current funding level passed through the House a couple months ago. Now we have to keep that $110 million for youth mentoring in the final package. The OJJDP's Youth Mentoring Grant supports mentoring opportunities for some of the most high-need youth, including those at risk of involvement in the juvenile justice system and those impacted by opioids and substance use disorders. So given the challenges facing young people today and the needs of the specific population we're trying to serve, additional funding is critical. An increased appropriation will save federal dollars in the long run. This is an investment in funding interventions that keep young people out of the juvenile justice system and promote positive academic and health outcomes, that can be lifelong. So with this funding, thousands more young people will be matched with mentors, and more programs will be able to take advantage of the training and technical assistance offered by the OJJDP's National Mentoring Resource Center. So thank you again. I look forward to hearing more about the impact of this grant and how an increase in funding will benefit young people across our country. Thank you so much for your interest, and let's hear more about it. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Representative Scanlan, for sending in those remarks. One part that just stuck out to me is that, and I kind of reinforce this over and over again, is that mentoring is one of very few and specific strategies out there that acts as both a prevention and an intervention strategy to meet young people's needs. So one of those very unique sort of strategies. And thanks to Representative Scanlan again for just all the advocacy that she does for us. And we're going to talk a little bit more later about the Youth Mentoring Caucus and some of the work that we can do. I'm going to bring in Jim Antel, invite him to go ahead and turn on his video and his mic. Jim is the Associate Administrator for the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. OJJDP manages this grant, which is the single largest investment, public or private, in mentoring in the country. And so after Jim's remarks, we'll go straight into a video from Senator Blumenthal, but we're so happy to have you here joining us today, Jim, and I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thanks, Caden. Can you confirm that you can hear me? Is that a yes?
You're good.
All right, great. Yeah, so thanks for that introduction, and thanks so much for the invitation to be a part of this meeting today. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I'm sharing greetings from OJJDP. Obviously, thank Representative Scanlan and members of this caucus for this opportunity, and just to get a chance to talk a little bit about what OJJDP's role in these efforts. She hit a lot of the marks, so I could basically just say ditto. But OJJDP definitely does have a long history of supporting youth mentoring programs. As Representative Scanlan mentioned, the investment has been over $1 billion. From fiscal year 08 to fiscal year 2020. Our goals for this funding, for the mentoring appropriation that we receive, are to, number one, increase the opportunities for youth to have mentors across the country, and more importantly, to improve the quality and the impact of the mentoring that they do receive. So we've spent a lot of time and investments in trying to build that quality and bring those resources to the field. From 2000, just some of a quick note here, from 2017 through the first half of 2019, based off of the performance measures that we receive from the grantees that receive the OJJDP funds, these funded programs have recruited over 95,000 new mentors and served more than 600,000 youth nationwide. And so this data is a little behind because of the reporting, but it's just amazing to see the impact that that this appropriation has across the country for those youth that need and deserve these mentoring relationships. We use the funding to, obviously in order to achieve these results, we use the funding to release program solicitations as well as training and technical assistance. There's guests here today that have applied for and received funding from some of the program solicitations that you'll hear from in a bit. Historically, our mentoring opportunities for youth solicitation, which has a number of different categories, we've been able to support solicitations that focus on specialized services and mentoring for children and youth who are victims of sex trafficking and sexual exploitation. We've supported researcher practitioner partnerships, as well as supporting mentoring programs specifically for youth involved in the juvenile justice system with partnerships with juvenile probation. So we've tried to get creative with and build off of the strength of mentoring to serve specific populations and to try to build up the research component. Most recently in fiscal year 21, we did split up the mentoring opportunities for youth solicitation into separate solicitations, our national mentoring solicitation, multi-state mentoring, and then the youth impacted by opioid solicitation. And we did that mainly because it aligns more closely with our peer review process, but it gives us a way, by separating it out of that multi-category solicitation, to highlight the opportunities to support mentoring for youth impacted by opioids. It's a standalone solicitation, and it helps to bring in those mentoring organizations that have those partnerships with treatment centers or experts within that field. So we felt that was important. And then in addition, we were able to, it allowed us, by separating it into from a multi-category solicitation to separate solicitations, it allowed us to include a category that focused more closely on supporting more local mentoring programs. So that's something that we're going to continue to build on in the next couple of years. Obviously, our training and technical assistance is something that's critically important. And in 2015, we launched the National Mentoring Resource Center in partnership with Mentor to be able to demonstrate OJJDP's leadership in the field of youth mentoring. So Representative Scanlan touched on that piece. The National Mentoring Resource Center has three primary functions. One of them, and Caden as well, it has a website which is just full of an array of resources for mentoring organizations and communities interested in developing mentoring programs. It has a research board to help inform these products and increase the awareness of programs, practices, and resources that are evidence-based. And then, of course, the free training and technical assistance. You can't beat that. It's critically important in demonstrating this leadership to make sure that communities have the resources they need to get that mentoring program off the ground, to assist with recruitment, to assist with training. So that's critically important. We've enjoyed our partnership with Mentor and look forward to a continued relationship around the National Mentoring Resource Center. So again, I'm very happy to be a part of this meeting and just share a few remarks here at the beginning and to demonstrate the commitment of OJJDP to all of this work and to support all the work that the guests here are doing. So thanks again for this opportunity.
Hello, I'm Richard Blumenthal, United States Senator, and thank you so much for joining the Congressional Youth Mentoring Caucus and Mentor for this important briefing. And thank you for inviting me to share a few words about youth mentoring. We know that mentoring provides young people with evidence-based services that improve life outcomes and ensure that at-risk and underserved youth have the support needed to thrive. At its core, mentoring connects young people with consistent and stable role models in their lives when they need them most. With youth facing serious challenges related to substance abuse, mental health, and the effects of trauma, all exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic, mentoring has never been more important. Mentoring programs are proven to promote positive social development and behaviors in young people, reduce the number of youth who are disconnected from school, keep them from entering the juvenile justice system, and so much more. But we also know that there is a serious mentoring gap in the United States. The average mentoring program has 63 young people on their wait list, and 1 in 3 young people will go without a mentor during their childhood. We can help change and fill that gap. We can help close it by ensuring that the Young Mentoring Grant, the only mentoring specific line item in the federal budget, is funded to support and expand critical mentoring programs and services all across the country. That's why in the United States Senate, I've been proud to lead my colleagues year after year in requesting funding for the Youth Mentoring Grant. This Youth Mentoring Grant helps put young people on track to success in their personal lives, in their academic careers, and in their professional opportunities. It's critical that we, in Congress, ensure that it is robustly funded so that the mentoring programs and services that it supports can continue to do this very, very important work. So thank you again to the Youth Mentoring Caucus and to Mentor for hosting this briefing and for the chance to speak with all of you this afternoon. Thank you.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and invite our first panel to turn their cameras on. But first, I want to thank Jim, first of all, just for providing such a great overview of all the different categories of this event, of this grant, all the different services and programming we're able to offer that support young people. And also want to just thank Senator Blumenthal as well. I mean, he is one of our champions on the Hill. He leads our Dear Colleague letter in support of this grant in the Senate. And we're so thankful he was able to send in a couple of videos for us, or this video for us today. So we're going to go ahead and get into our first panel here. Our first panel is focused on the first 2 categories of the grant, the multi-state and national programs. I'm going to point to the bios and headshots document that will be dropped in the chat if it hasn't been already, We're not going to spend a ton of time talking about individuals or organizations, but are really going to be focused on talking about the programming we've been able to do, that the funding has allowed for this grant to happen, or with the grant has allowed to happen. So I'm going to ask each person first just to quickly introduce themselves and their organization, and then we'll go into some questions. So Zanae, do you want to go first?
Sure, Caden, and good morning, good afternoon. Thank you for allowing Boys and Girls Club of America, and specifically from Greater Houston, to be a part of today's webinar. We are just so thrilled and humbled because mentorship is in our DNA. So as mentioned, I'm Zanae Campbell from Boys and Girls Club of Greater Houston, and we are a direct beneficiary of the multi-state national grants from the Youth Mentoring Grant. And just to give a little bit of insight around Boys and Girls Club of America, we are a mighty group of 4,700 clubs across this nation, serving about 4.3 young people. And as I said earlier, mentoring is a part of our DNA, so it's huge impact. But directly from this funding, we're able to serve young people across all 50 states, and being able to give a direct sense of belonging, direct connections, and opportunities to young people to have safe, caring adults and mentors in their life. We're really thankful for the continued support on all ends, and look forward to today's discussion.
Thank you, Zanae. Joy, if you'd like to go next.
Sure, good morning, and thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here. My name is Joy Thompson. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm here representing Youth Collaboratory. At Youth Collaboratory, I serve as a director of programs for building community and addressing trafficking. And Youth Collaboratory itself serves organizations and professionals working to improve the lives of young people, their families, and communities. And we harness the power of the youth services community to innovate, evaluate, and drive effective strategies that assure the safety and well-being of youth and young adults, unlocking their limitless potential. Our key focus areas are coordinated community response to youth and adult homelessness, preventing and addressing relationship violence, sexual exploitation, and trafficking of youth, and supporting opportunities for young people to build community with family, peers, and others to enhance their assets, explore their strengths, and develop lasting connections. We also benefit from OJJDP funding, and since 2012, we have had the opportunity to build true community with our partner organizations, and we have 81 chapters across 31 states that annually provide enhanced mentoring services to over 5,000 batches and reach more than 160,000 youth and families across a range of programming. And we're so excited for this conversation today.
Thank you so much, Joy, and such great work that's happening over at Youth Collaboratory. I'm going to invite Shelly to go ahead and go next.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shelly Hunter. I am CEO of College Mentors for Kids, and just honored to be here today. Thank you for the invitation, and thank you so much for support through this grant. Let me tell you a little bit about College Mentors for Kids. We use amazing, energetic, motivated college students as our mentors. We bring 1st through 6th graders to a college campus once a week where they are mentored by their college student mentors. So throughout the school year, our little buddies are on campus between like 18 and 20 times. So quality time on campus, maybe probably 30 hours on campus with their mentors. So when they're on campus, they get to take advantage of all the amazing resources of a college campus. We focus on higher ed and careers, community service, and culture and diversity as our pillars for our curriculum. We are in 32 college campuses right now in 9 states. And just really want to emphasize that we start at kind of that really young age, 1st through 6th graders. Really, we know that we can have a very significant impact early on. And while we are having that impact, our little buddies are gaining self-esteem. They are learning about strong relationships. They're learning pro-social behavior, and all while creating this amazing vision for their future. Thanks. Very happy to be here today.
Thanks to all three of you, and so excited to dig deeper into all the amazing programming you've been able to do with funding from this grant. And so the first question I'll pose to all three of our panelists and invite whoever wants to hop in. The OJJDP Youth Mentoring Grant is the single biggest investment, public or private, in quality youth mentoring in the United States. You told us a little bit about your respective programs. Now, can you tell us a little bit about what this funding has made possible, and whoever wants to hop in?
I'll start us off, Kaden, on that one. As we look at a national perspective for Boys and Girls Club, annually we're able to serve, 34,000 or more young people across the 50 states. When I look here in Houston, when you say what has that made possible, it has been direct connection for young people. For us, it's hundreds of thousands of young people that are connected to caring adults. It has helped create pathways for young people. It has helped create, as I mentioned earlier, sense of belonging, someone to talk to, someone to bounce things off. One of the things that we've had a lot of success here in Houston is bridging gaps between law enforcement and also opening doors to pathways of workforce, right? We hear a lot about young people, simplified, want dollars in their pocket. And as we know as adults, how necessary it is for them to have pathways to be able to, earn living wages and to be able to have a successful and thriving life. And so when we're able to introduce them to, opportunities to learn skills and be introduced to industries, no better way than through an actual mentor to talk about how they have walked that, or here's some ideas of some different pathways that they have taken. So, the funding has really allowed to maximize efforts for doors to open for young people. I think, we have seen trajectory of lives change. We've seen actual just lives saved and changed because of it, but we've also seen it from the side of, improved grades, reduction of those risky behaviors, just those positive connections with their peers, their family, and then of course, with the whole community and society. So it has been, I don't know that we would ever really understand the true full impact that this has made on it, but it is definitely something that has, I think, will change generations.
I'll echo what Zane said about connection and engagement. I mean, especially in the past 2 years for us, that has been such a, at the core of what we're doing. So, I mean, this is our third OJJDP grant. We are very grateful. What that has meant for us is we're able to serve more kids. We have grown, we're serving 73% more kids than we did from our first grant, and 60% more sites for mentoring. So this grant has helped us grow and literally engage more kids in a time where I think we were all feeling very disconnected. We were 100% virtual last year. And so we were still able to provide that connection, that engagement outside of our little buddies' peer groups, their families, their fellow students that they were seeing. So we hope we've inspired them. We know we've inspired them to think about what it means to become a college student, what it means for the next step of their lives. And we couldn't have done it without this grant.
Yeah, I think for many of us, whether we're staffers or we're mentoring professionals, I think we're all here today because someone took the time to formally or informally mentor us, to advocate for an additional seat at the table, to make an introduction, to make space and pathways for us. And mentoring aims to make a science out of that and to build community for the sake of community. And Mentoring Plus is a community-based model which combines those elements of effective practices of mentoring with some specific enhancements. And some of those enhancements include family engagement in a very deep and meaningful way, as well as ongoing training and partnerships with community organizations. So we've seen over the last year, in the wake of COVID, in the midst of national unrest, that these enhancements and connections to community were so very powerful. Because community members and organizations were connected, they were able to supply identify resources to families and youth when they needed them. And because we were asking them to stay connected monthly, no matter how long they were met, they were aware of the resources that the family actually needed. And that ongoing training provided opportunities to empower mentors to have difficult conversations with families in order to be truly beneficial in live time to what their youth were experiencing. And so that's some of what we have experienced over the last year. And we're hoping that what we do in terms of bringing our programs, our partners together, not just to hear from us, but to hear from each other and build a community and a culture of membership, a culture of mentorship, that they will then take that experience and do the same thing with their communities. So that's part of the work that we're doing here at Youth Collaboratory.
Such important points, related to the COVID-19 pandemic at a time where we had felt so disconnected. Mentoring programs have really been able to step up and connect us in ways and provide services for needs that we never expected to happen. So I can go ahead and go to the next question, which is for Joy. Communities recognize the importance of lived experience in program design and implementation. Can you share some examples of innovative practices that mentoring organizations can use to incorporate authentic youth voice in designing and implementing their mentoring programs?
For sure. I would like to actually defer to two of my colleagues, and I'd like to introduce them so you all know who they are. Muriel Milne, who is here with us from Youth Collaboratory as a Youth Catalyst team member and consultant, and also Tatiana Howard with Boulder Options, who works as a corporate partnership specialist. So I'd like to invite them to share a little bit about their thoughts on this. Go for it, Muriel.
I can jump in and go first. Awesome. Yeah, so I think if you've met me, you already know what time it is. It's time to talk more about community. That was a really great intro and segue into that topic. And I think that that is the biggest strategy or practice that I'd want to share is take a community approach. Like this question even kind of states like, communities recognize the importance. I want to see you network like it then. Like the same way that we pursue funders and other community partners, how are we pursuing like lived expertise and youth voice and really in a like community-centered way where we're just building authentic relationships. So I really think that that's always going to be my number one piece of advice. And I have had the privilege of experiencing it in a really powerful way and can attest to the fact that it is not just an abstract idea, but when community is created and when young people are respected in this way, it creates amazing opportunities and relationships. The second thing I would want to advocate for and share as a promising practice is creating youth action boards, and just in general ways to get youth feedback. Whether that's like a community night or a survey or that more established youth action board or youth leadership board, having a very clear, like, we want feedback from young people and we're going to create the outlets to get it is really, really important. And so however you do it, it should be incentivized, is that the word? Yeah, or paid for. And then the last thing I would want to say on this question is like break down power dynamics whenever and wherever you can. I think that there is pretty rampant adultism in the field of youth services. And so whenever we can take a moment to be like, we're just both human beings that have expertise and value, and we want to work on this issue together and break down those power dynamics by doing that, it's going to make a huge impact. So hopefully those weren't too abstract. And those are that's my advice for this question. I'll pass it to you, Tatiana.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think a lot of great stuff has already been said. Yeah, I don't know necessarily what to add because I feel like that's what I would have said. For me personally, I think the youth to mentor relationship is very important. So kind of also addressing community in that sense. I think the intentionality that you have between your youth and mentors are extremely important to it's not just about hanging out, it's about actually building that relationship and having that foundation. So I think what organizations should do is just be more focused on what is that foundation that we want to build and strive towards, and how can we have that reflected in our mentorship. So I think that is something important to address, along with helping youth promote empowerment is a key thing to address. And I think that goes along with transparency and just letting youth know what's going on, and also allow youth to be placed in positions where they can actually speak for themselves. Because I feel like the perfect thing that someone has ever said to me was, everyone is wise, but some just have a hard time articulating how wise they actually are. And I think that's very true for youth as well. Youth are some of the smartest and most creative people on this planet. And since, we let age dictate that level of intelligence, and I think sometimes we need to be more willing to hear their voices, and because the whole purpose of these organizations, this funding, is to serve them. So who's better to suggest how to be served than youth themselves? And I think, those probably like the main things for me. That's all I have.
So thankful to have you both here. Joy, I don't know if I saw you unmuted. So there's anything you want to add?
I echo and lift all of that up, and I would add to integrate youth voice and authentic engagement at every level of when you're creating the program, developing, monitoring the program, and to go beyond simple focus groups, but to hire youth and center them and be sure that they are informing every aspect of your programming.
Thank you all so much. And just one part really stuck with me with what y'all said. Mentoring is both about community and about empowerment. What are we doing if we're not empowering youth through our work? I have one last question that I wanted to give to Shelly, but anyone can feel free to hop in on it after she answers. With public funding comes important additional responsibility to ensure funding is used effectively. Can you talk about some of the program evaluation and reporting you've done to ensure your programming is leading to positive outcomes for youth?
Yeah, absolutely. So we spend a lot of time really focusing on this. I want to highlight first just the training that we do. We spend an incredible amount of time working directly with our college student mentors. We have our national conference at the beginning of the year, and then use that as the start of our program year. And they take all that great information, go back to their campuses, and we use a train the trainer model. We also do routine on-site visits. There's nothing cooler than going to a college campus, right? So we take every opportunity to go visit our colleagues, our awesome mentors on college campuses, and work with them directly. We have great staff that spend a lot of time working with those mentors on the campuses. While they're on campus, we have a list of chapter standards. So we hold each chapter to a very high standard, and we are clear in our expectations of what those standards are for our chapter leadership. And we spend a great deal of time talking about that, focusing on that, and evaluating our standards. And also just our ongoing program evaluation for our little buddies, for our families, for our elementary school partners, big part of what we do. I also just want to highlight really quickly that we have utilized resources of the National Mentoring Resource Center. That was an incredible gift for us. We were able to basically rewrite our logic model and focus on a lot of different things, and really, but also really just hone in on what we're doing as a program. So, we talk a lot about self-efficacy, self-esteem, pro-social behavior, awareness of different careers. All those things came out in our logic model. We were able to evaluate those, and also want to recognize that we have gained in all of those areas as well. So really grateful to the connection to the NMRC.
Thank you so much, Shelly, and just great to see, that we're able to really prove the value that these public dollars are going towards through our evaluation and reporting work. So I want to thank this panel so much for your wise words. And we're going to go ahead and move on to our next portion, which is a video from Representative Langevin. Representative Langevin leads our Dear Colleague letter on the House side in support of the Youth Mentoring Grant, along with Representative Feenstra. And so he wanted to share a few words with us today.
Hi, I'm Congressman Jim Langevin. Thank you for joining the Congressional Youth Mentoring Caucus and the Bipartisan Disabilities Caucus for this important briefing. We know that mentoring programs are a crucial resource for young people, particularly those who are low income, academically at risk, or members of otherwise disadvantaged communities, including young people with disabilities. Mentorship puts kids on a path to success by promoting positive social and behavioral development. Disadvantaged young people who meet regularly with mentors are 52% less likely to skip class, 55% more likely to plan to go to college, and 130% more likely to hold a leadership position. These evidence-based programs level the playing field and help youth build foundations for success in adulthood. I know firsthand the importance of having a mentor. There are many people in my life that I consider mentors who stoked my interest in politics and taught me what it means to be a public servant. I'm lucky enough to count among my mentors former Mayor Joe Walsh and former Mayor Frank Flaherty, two brilliant mayors of my hometown of Warwick, Rhode Island. I'm also lucky to have Senator Claiborne Pell as a mentor, for whom I interned with and later joined as a colleague in government when I became Secretary of State. Working on the mayoral campaigns of Joe and Frank were my earliest forays into electoral politics. Both men encouraged my passion and served as valuable role models when I ran to be a delegate in the Rhode Island Constitutional Convention in 1986, and later campaigned to represent my hometown of Warwick in the State House. Senator Pell was the consummate statesman. He didn't care about who got credit. He only cared about serving his constituents and getting the job done. To this day, I model my approach to public service on the principles that I learned from him. Now, it's not an exaggeration to say that without these mentors, I would not be where I am today. An unfortunate reality is that too many young people with disabilities are less likely than non-disabled youth to have good education and good workplace outcomes. In fact, people with disabilities attend post-secondary education at a significantly lower rate than people without disabilities, and the labor force participation rate for people with disabilities is less than half the rate for people without disabilities. So these are not encouraging statistics for disabled youth. But fortunately, mentorship can help young people with disabilities overcome many of these challenges. Through mentorship, youth with disabilities to display improved academic performance, higher college enrollment rates, and increased career awareness. Sadly, mentorship, though, is out of reach for many young people. Mentor estimates that 16 million youth in the United States are growing up without a mentor of any kind. Mentor has also found that most disadvantaged youth are less likely to connect with an informal mentor, and this includes young people with disabilities. Lack of demand is not the cause of the mentorship gap. In fact, the average mentorship program has 63 young people on its wait list. Clearly, more resources are necessary to ensure that equitable access to mentoring services are there. Thankfully, youth mentorship is one area that can boast bipartisan support in Congress. In April, I was proud to lead an appropriations letter with my good friend and colleague, Congressman Randy Feenstra, in support of youth mentoring grants at the Department of Justice. This grant program funds evidence-based mentoring services for at-risk and underserved youth so that they have the supports that they need to thrive academically, personally, and professionally. As the only mentoring specific item in the federal budget, strong congressional advocacy for this program is essential, and I was glad to see so many of my colleagues from both sides of the aisle join Representative Feenstra and me on our letter. So with help from Mentor, Partners for Youth with Disabilities, and their allied organizations, Congress can close the mentorship gap and expand the inclusive mentoring movement. So I want to say thank you again for being here, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the briefing.
Thanks again to Representative Langevin, another champion for us for sending in that video. I'm going to invite our second panelist, folks, to go ahead and turn on their cameras. OJGDP really intentionally a couple of years ago decided to put in two funding categories for youth impacted by substance abuse and misuse. And we're really excited to hear from a couple individuals who've been doing really important and critical work in this space in an ongoing crisis, and really been doing important prevention work to support our young people. And I'm again going to point to the bios document that was dropped into the chat box earlier. We don't have a whole ton of time to go into all the amazing backgrounds of our amazing panelists. So check out that link. And I also just want to acknowledge, if you have any questions, feel free to use the Q&A feature or drop them in the chat. If we can't answer them during these panels, then we're happy to get them answered for you at a later date. All right, so we'll go ahead and do a quick round robin of each of our folks on this panel. Tiff, if you want to start first, go ahead and give an introduction of yourself and the program that you lead.
Sure, thank you so much, Caden. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for allowing NRPA to join this briefing and advance this important work. We are honored to be in a room with so many motivated, brilliant minds and hearts that want the best for our youth. My name is Tiff Cunin. I use they, them pronouns, and I oversee the Youth Mentoring in Parks and Recreation body of work at the National Recreation and Park Association. NRPA is the national nonprofit organization dedicated to advancing park, recreation, and health and wellness efforts that enhance the quality of life for all people in the United States. We represent more than 12,000 agencies and more than 60,000 park and recreation professionals, touching the lives of more than 200 million people across the country. As experienced community-based providers of vital health and wellness services, local park and recreation agencies are an essential component to the public health system and already function in a critical role as mentors and role models to at-risk youth. Park and recreation agencies provide a multitude of services that promote positive youth development, addressing physical, mental, and emotional health, and tackling our most concerning public health threats, including substance use disorder. Since 2018, NRPA has focused on building the capacity of local park and recreation agencies to implement youth mentoring programs through the development of NRPA's Youth Mentoring Framework and implementation of the 2018 and 2020 OJJDP statewide and regional mentoring initiative for youth impacted by opioids and drug addiction awards. This includes NRPA's work with 15 rural park and rec agencies in the Appalachian and New England regions to develop and implement mentoring programs for youth impacted by the opioid epidemic. To date, this funding has allowed our park and recreation professionals to support more than 250 youth through mentoring and have seen improvement across measures, including but not limited to pro-social behavior, school attendance, substance use, gang resistance, and community involvement. We are proud and excited to be joined by our colleagues from Elizabethton, Tennessee Parks and Recreation, where we have established evidence that supports the role of Parks and Recreation as a vital catalyst for social emotional learning, trauma-informed care, and addressing adverse childhood experiences. Thank you again for the opportunity to share the important role that our park and recreation agencies play in providing evidence-based youth mentoring programs in communities. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Tiff. And I'll go ahead and kick it over to Kelly.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you so much for the huge honor that it is to be here with you all today. My name is Kelly Kitchens, and I work with the City of Elizabethton Parks and Recreation. We are a small town here in Northeast Tennessee. With the City of Elizabethton Parks and Recreation, I'm the Programming and Special Events Coordinator. Back in 2017, I had begun a very important work with my colleague joining me here today, Jillian Reese. The Elizabethton Parks and Rec teamed up with our local drug prevention coalition. Jillian is the director there and has worked with us throughout the years to support trauma-informed care training, training in Narcan use, amongst our residents here. Of course, with Parks and Recreation, we began to see a turn in people who were attending our programming, more grandparents bringing their grandchildren to different events. We knew that a change had to be made, and so we began to blend in prevention with recreation. And so I'll turn it to Jillian to talk about her work.
Hi, thanks again for having us. My name is Jillian Reese. As Kelly said, I'm the director of Carter County Drug Prevention in Elizabethton, Tennessee. The work that we do here has been so impactful on our community. I think we both have such a heart for the people of our community, and we were able to take this funding and use that heart to really impact some kiddos' lives. And so at Carter County Drug Prevention, we focus on alcohol, tobacco, prescription drugs, and really all substance use prevention in youth. And so by having this funding and having the partnership with Parks and Rec, we've really been able to just make such an impact because we know that the impact we have alone is much less than the impact that we have together.
Such important work that you're leading there. I'm going to turn it over to my friend, Mary.
Hello all, so happy to be here today with all these great like-minded folks to talk about mentoring. I am Mary Shika, the director of Iowa Mentor. We are the affiliate of Mentor National on the champion for youth mentoring in the great state of Iowa. Our mission is to promote, support, and build quality mentoring relationships by elevating capacity of programs, systems, and policies for our state. We offer training, technical assistance, advocacy, and awareness for mentoring, and we have a strong connection with local leaders in mentoring across our state. As a state government agency, we partner with other state agencies, including public health, college aid, juvenile justice, and our collaborative for youth development to direct funding and develop policies that support young people. Our OJJDP project allows us to partner with a variety of smaller mentoring programs in rural areas. These are local programs that would not otherwise have access to OJJDP funding. They operate as small standalone nonprofits, or they're part of other social service agencies, county public health agencies, city government, and schools. So we are grateful for this funding that allows us to work with those programs.
Thanks so much, Mary. And I just want to sort of acknowledge one thing too, which is that mentoring can really have an impact on a wide range of positive outcomes for youth. And I think that a lot of times folks don't understand that sort of connection, but this is sort of proven in research, and it kind of ties into my first question that I'm going to pose to all of our panelists, which is that I don't think that a normal person on the street would completely understand the intersection of youth mentoring and substance abuse and misuse. And OJJDP was very intentional about putting two categories towards this a few years ago. And so maybe if just each of you could talk about the impact people and families on families experiencing substance misuse face, and how does mentoring play a positive role in addressing it? Whoever wants to start.
I'll be happy to begin. We, of course, develop Peak Mentors through the funding here. And so I'll turn this to Jillian, who can talk more about the multi-generational abuse that we see here in our area. Yeah, so in our community, around 1 in 4 kiddos are impacted in some way by substance use. We're really stuck in generational cycles of poverty, substance use, mental health issues, and a lack of resources to be able to kind of negate those things. And so the data shows us that kiddos who experience these adverse childhood experiences or trauma are really impacted by those things throughout their lives. And so they need safe, stable, nurturing relationships to be able to kind of counteract that. And so mentoring is so important because in many cases we don't have safe, stable, nurturing relationships within our families. And so our community has to step up and create those relationships for the kiddos in order to break these cycles.
Thank you so much for lifting up that work that you're doing in Elizabethton. At NRPA, we feel very strongly in alignment with what Elizabethton has been able to witness through their youth mentoring program. We've been very proud to support them, and we've been supported by Mentor as well in this process of developing programs that are flexible, they're community-based, as well as learning how to pivot. I know that our first panel mentioned quite a bit about the COVID-19 pandemic. Elizabethton and our colleagues there and our colleagues at Mentor have been really great at allowing us an opportunity to develop innovative solutions to mentoring programs that may not be able to happen in person. So I think that we've also been able to see an impact across the last year, folks being in a virtual environment, we've been able to improve social connectedness, decrease social isolation, and therefore see improvements across the health spectrum for youth that are in these mentoring programs.
All right. Thank you for those great answers. So the next question I'm going to pose to Mary, but anyone feel free to hop in. That question is, it's been exciting to see this administration and Congress's understanding of the value of this grant, support for further expanding it. The grant program was funded at $100 million for fiscal year 21. President Biden proposed a funding level of $120 million. The House approved a level of $110 million, and the Senate CJS subcommittee has proposed that same number. In addition to funding more programs doing similar strong work to what you all are doing, what areas of focus or changes would you like to see this grant address in future award years?
Yes, we're so grateful for the OJJDP support and the recognition that of mentoring as a prevention and intervention strategy. We appreciate the broadening of the opioid affected category to include all drug addiction. And I would like to see that broadened even further. We've talked some previously in the previous discussion about the risk factors for young people, including childhood ACEs and trauma, and just broadening that as a category would just make it more inclusive of all of the things that we're seeing in our communities. I think we could continue to look at specific populations of youth that are being served and who is being underserved. And I know that Jim touched on that before, looking at specific populations have been focused on before, but I think we could dig into that further and see who maybe is being underserved. And as the mentor affiliate in a state with a large rural population, we appreciate the eligibility in one category now to subgrant out to smaller organizations. Especially in the rural areas, these smaller organizations don't have capacity to manage a grant on their own, and they're not part of a multi-state or national program. And so I appreciate, again, Jim talking about OJJDP changes that help support local programs more. And I think we've heard several times on this call that OJJDP is the only federal funding for mentoring programs. So of course, I think we should be encouraging all of our other government agencies to support youth mentoring as well.
Couldn't agree more with you there. I'm happy to invite anyone else to hop in.
Wow, Mary, you took a lot of words right out of my mouth. That was really great to hear. So we have very similar thoughts at NRPA, but in light of what Mary's response was, I don't want to regurgitate that. So we'll go in just a little bit of a different direction. So NRPA in the field of park and recreation, we have a steadfast commitment to improving holistic health outcomes for youth, but particularly Black, Native American, Latino, Asian American, and low-income communities. So kind of piggybacking off of what Mary was mentioning, making sure that we are reaching everyone in our communities and that we are lifting up our most disenfranchised populations. So in future award years, I think communities across the country will benefit from federal support that specifically addresses the health inequities and disparities that persist for communities of color, specifically youth of color. So the inequities and barriers that systemic racism, so policies, institutional practices, and social norms that maintain hierarchies, cultivates in access to housing, education, employment, the built and social environments, and healthcare. And we're feeling that across generations, and most acutely in Black, Native American, Latino, and Asian American communities. And so, when we examine across other dimensions of identity, health inequities are greatest when stratified by race. And Black, Native American, Latino, and Asian American youth are disproportionately represented in the juvenile justice system and are oftentimes overlooked when we're talking about the opioid use epidemic in rural and Appalachian areas where we have focused a lot of our work, simply because of the natural demographic breakup of those communities. However, we've expanded into New England, and we've been really excited to be able to expand our work in communities in Maine, where there are larger Somali populations, larger New American populations. And so what we'd really like to see is more of a focus or funding that focuses on lifting up these historically disenfranchised populations and bringing them to the forefront of our communities through youth mentoring.
Such an important point. And Kelly, I invite you to hop in if you have anything else to add here, or I'm happy to go to the next question.
So
Just to piggyback on what Tiff said, another area of outreach that we feel particularly strong about is LGBTQ plus youth, and making sure that everyone has a voice around our table. We love to embrace kind of the slogan, nothing about us without us. And so making sure that our mentoring program is encompassing of everybody, no matter what their race, gender, ethnicity may be. And so really taking a look at our program from the top down and making sure that in all of our leadership and all of the planning we do, that everybody has a seat around the table, and just making sure that our community is not represented by the majority, but also making sure that we have those voices in everything that we do, and the events that we do, and the people that we reach are not just right here in the heart of our community, but also in the more rural areas and the areas that are underserved with so many things in our community.
Thank you so much. Just the word I keep hearing over and over again is community, and we need to make sure that everyone in our community is engaged and involved in these relationships. I have one last question that I'll pose, and anyone feel free to hop in. But if anyone, feel free to talk about the impact COVID-19 has had on your program, the mentor-mentee relationships you match, and how you adjusted in 2020 and since. Will you keep any of the program adjustments you made as a result of the pandemic moving forward?
I would love to talk about this because I feel just as we were getting started rolling out our program to the community, of course, COVID hit, and it hit hard here in our area. This was something that Jillian and I both felt very, very strongly about, because for just like probably a lot of your kiddos there, school offered so much to these kids. For a lot of them, it may have been the only wholesome meal that they were getting, the only attention or love that they were shown throughout the day. To be thrown into isolation was very, very difficult for our youth here. And so we really wanted to make sure that we were meeting these kids where they were, that we were meeting these families where they were. We really took a lot of new initiatives that served for both recruitment purposes, but also caring for those that we had in the program. One of the first things that we did was we implemented a summer camp in a bag program. And so we put together care bags for anyone in the community that wanted to come and pick those up. And it included different arts and crafts activities. A lot of them came with free of charge Zoom classes that were led by some great people here in our community that taught different skills to these kids. Different things for them to be able to do to keep busy throughout the week while they were stuck at home. And we were able to provide a free meal. And so that brought a lot of people out to come and interact with us. We did it as a drive-through situation out in our parking lot. And so each week we were serving hundreds of people. We actually kept that going through the winter into the early spring this year. I think that that's something that we will definitely look at doing again, really just focusing on, the ability to quickly reach a lot of people and provide a lot of things. We really received a lot of great feedback from that. Another thing that we did was work very closely with a local communications and marketing agency to develop a online mentoring program to allow our mentors and our mentees to connect virtually. The program was tailored to our needs. It is called Ripple. It was something that they built so that we were able to tell them exactly what we were looking for, and made sure that it also tracked our different things that we wanted to see, how often they were meeting over this program, what mentors and mentees were able to utilize it the most. That's something that we will always keep, because let's just be real. Sometimes it's just not always possible to meet in person, or you want to be able to give more accessibility to more than just that short period of time throughout the week. You want to be able to talk a little bit more sometimes, especially as situations call for it. That's something we will definitely keep around, because we've really loved how it has really changed that aspect in our mentoring program.
Just so inspiring to hear about how mentoring programs have stepped up to meet the needs of their community at a time of crisis. It's really important, and I want to thank the work that all of you have done to support young people in your community. With that, I'm going to invite a special video from a special guest. I recognize this at the 1 o'clock hour, but we have just a couple of quick moments of your time here to sort of close this out. If you can stay, we would love that. With that, I'll turn it over to our friend Ramaya.
Mentoring is extremely important because I know some teens in my age have like broken homes and broken families, and they need an outlet, someone to be around that they can express their emotions to, just express themselves and be themselves and participate in activities that they didn't know they actually enjoyed, or activities that they really do enjoy. And I think that's really, really, really important because it helps them clear their minds. It helps them be themselves. And one of the best things is you building that family relationship. A mentor and mentee is not just a mentor and a mentee. It's literally a family. My mentor's husband was my brother's mentor, and all around we were like a big family, and we like did a lot of adventures and made a lot of memories. And I think that's really important because you don't want to leave that part out and leave the love part out, because that's really important. And it's impacted my life so much. Like, being a part of the mentoring program, Boulder Options, has helped me a lot, because like it helps me find out who I am, what I like to do, activities I like to do, and like what I want to pursue. They help me like, oh, I could be a part of this when, if I want to go to college, I can also be a part of Boulder Options or something. Like, they really help you, and like they make a lot of opportunities that you never thought you would have. And me and my family are extremely grateful and amazed, and I love mentoring programs. It's amazing. They have impacted my life a lot.
Thank you so much to Ramaya and to Youth Collaboratory specifically for helping us incorporate these youth voices into today's briefing. Well, we do have one more special guest to close this out, but really quick, of course, I would be remiss if I didn't propose a couple of asks to our remaining folks on the call. We hope we've demonstrated the value of this programming for young people, and that your office will support a final appropriations of at least $110 million in this year's spending bill as decisions are sort of being made. I also just want to plug the Congressional Youth Mentoring Caucus. We are a great, growing bipartisan group. This was our 6th briefing this year, and we're always looking for additional ways to further plug into the mentoring movement through legislation. We've heard a lot today that mentoring can be a part, and we really believe this, that mentoring can be a part of a solution to a lot of societal problems. And we're continuing to explore those ways, and we hope that you'll join us to further explore those as well. Also, just want to plug that January is National Mentoring Month, and so there will be opportunities for members of Congress to talk about their own mentors through 1-minute floor speeches, on social media, videos, and so on. So we'll be in touch with your office's comms folks, but be on the lookout for that. And if you'd like to join the Youth Mentoring Caucus, you can contact me or Faith Wilcox at faith.wilcox@mail.house.gov. And with that, I think it's completely appropriate for us to have Jordan, my friend Jordan, close us out. Thank you all for coming today.
Hello, my name is Jordan Black, and I am a former mentee with Boulder Options. I was a mentee, 5 years ago, and I thought it was a really cool experience, a really important experience, because it provides a safe space for someone to come out of their shell and experience new things. I know I was really shy, and there wasn't a lot of stuff that I really did on my own before my mentorship, and I got to experience so many new things. Learned that I liked certain kinds of exercise, pushed myself to do things that I wouldn't normally be able to do. For example, a 5K, I always struggled with running, and my mentor just helped push me and like be able to complete that experience and to do that experience that I wouldn't have been able to otherwise. And I just learned that I liked more, I guess, exercising things. I like hiking. We just played around with racquetball, hitting a ball back and forth on a tennis court, that sort of stuff. And overall, it was a really great experience. It helped me a lot. And I think it's really important for other people to get that chance and that safe space and encouraging person to help them be stronger and to help them expand their horizons.